Hey, so this is Craig, the Natural Medic, and I'm heading on a tour of Keys Ranch. And it's a ranger-led tour. It's a reservation-only tour to see how Bill Keys lived out here in what is now Joshua Tree National Park. So if that's something that interests you, follow along. So here's a view of the main ranch property. You have, looks like a mill over here. Here's the house. And here's a interesting little junkyard of old things. We're heading into the house area now. You'll notice this whole area, probably a great spot for a house because you're in a bowl with one way in. So there was a surplus of military vehicles because General Patton trained people for the North African conflict in the area. And so there were several things. Supposedly this dinner bell over here is from an old tank. Pretty neat. We can't go into the house, but we can kind of look in the windows here maybe. This was a store building that was built for the wife to offer to travelers that were coming through. It turned into a national monument in 1936. And maybe you can see inside, maybe not. But it looks like there's a table in there and some storage areas for kitchen pots. This is the kitchen area, it looks like to me. And this right here is a evaporative fridge. So they would put water in there and it would evaporate and cool the stuff. So over there is what they call the mother-in-law cabin. And that was where she wanted to stay. There is a dam upstream, so Bill started building this retaining wall. This is the house on the other side. And this is the garden. They actually at that time had a much higher rainfall, so garden was much more possible. These are pear trees that are still here. But they had pretty much the whole thing you can think of in their garden area. That crane over there was used to move the blocks to make that retaining wall, but he eventually gave up. But there is a dam actually up there where they had a lake. They're successful enough that they were able to put fish in it. Alright, so you have a windmill right here to pump in extra water as needed to run things. We're going to walk over here to the shop area and see what that looks like. So when the Park Service took over this site, Bill was allowed to prepare things he wanted visitors to see. So this is, I guess, cool rocks that he has found, and there was old pots and bottles and stuff. Just really cool. Yeah.
You see how the
Now we're in the junkyard. Here's some old wagons that have been restored by the Park Service. Now we're going to go over and talk about the chickens. So a couple things to note right here. This was one of the first rental cabins that they had as visitors started coming to the park. And if you couldn't afford that, right next to that you could rent a bed frame and you could stay under the stars, cowboy style. Bill was definitely an entrepreneur. So right there you got an old Mack truck. And you got all the parts that you could ever need. You're in the middle of the desert. It's like an O'Reilly's right here. So over there was a one stamp mill. Behind it is Augusta, I think is what it's called, which was a manual version. That's how they brought in the rock, the raw ore, and they crushed it, hoping that gold was inside. Then in here we have a sluice. So that was the ranger guided tour. It's about a half a mile walk once you get in there and lasts about 90 minutes. Lasted almost exactly 90 minutes when I was in there. And talks about Bill Keys, who had property here until 1969. He was allowed to live on property for a long time until he passed away, even after the park was established. You do have to make reservations on the tour, but as you saw from the tour footage, he did quite a lot to sustain himself and be successful here in a harsh environment. Let's take a look at a map over here. This is a picture of Bill and Frances with 3 of their children, Willis, Virginia, and Ellsworth. As it was obvious from the deal, he served working in the mine and homestead of the area. There's kind of a map of the general area right there, and a little bit about the native people that lived here.
Hi there. So this was recorded right after my birthday on April the 5th of this year in Joshua Tree. If you ever have a chance to take this tour, it's definitely worth it. I kind of gave you some highlights in this tour. If you enjoyed it and liked it, give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing to the channel so you don't miss more great videos like this. If you have any questions, comments, please leave them below. If you're on the podcast listening, make sure to click on that link to send us a message. Let us know what you're up to. That's about it. Obviously, I couldn't give you the whole tour because that would spoil the surprise. Plus, I didn't want to interrupt the ranger when he was telling his different anecdotes and stories. And consequently, it was like the last time he was going to be there. He was moving on to Yellowstone National Park. That was his last tour to do there in Joshua Tree. I would recommend going to Joshua Tree right now, but when it cools down, probably a good place to check out. And if you're there, might as well go on this tour. Okay, for now, see you out there on the trail.